Hey Church Online Summit, Steve Fogg here, your Summit host. I'm so thrilled in this session to be able to chat to my friend Mike Stevens. Mike is the lead pastor of Clovercrest Baptist Church in Adelaide, Australia. I served with Mike for a long time here in Melbourne, so that's why I kind of make that mistake. But it's such a joy to be able to chat with Mike. And what I want you to listen to in this session is how to lead your church through a global pandemic. Mike has been a senior leader for only a few years, and yet you're going to listen to this and you are going to be surprised by just some of the insights he drops in this session. He is so wise beyond his years, and it's so great to be able to chat with Mike. Now, there's just one little thing about this session is that the video is just a little bit scratchy. Zoom calls always, sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not so great. This time it wasn't so great, but the content is priceless. So come on, let's join Mike and myself as he shares about how to lead through a global pandemic. Well, hey everyone, it's Steve Fogg here, and in this session I am joined by my very good friend Mike Stevens. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm going really well, thanks Steve. Thanks so much for having me today, and might I say well done on pulling together the Church Online Summit. You're such a champ and you've done a great job with this.
Oh, thanks mate, thanks. I really appreciate you. And Mike is joining us from Adelaide in Australia, and I'm just so thrilled that I've got a local on. So for us here,
come on.
I know we've got a lot of Australian church leaders watching, and I've been corresponding with people from Queensland, WA, Tasmania, Victoria, New Zealand. Haha, joke. So lots of people just locally, but obviously there are lots more overseas as well. Mike, great to have you on. Just tell us a little bit about you, your church, this season, and introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. No worries. Well, nice to be with everyone today. So as Steve said, I'm from Adelaide in South Australia, and I'm currently serving as the lead pastor of Clovercrest Baptist Church. And it's a wonderful church, multi-service church, and we have a great staff. In terms of our setup, we have about 18, 20 staff. We have around 800 people come through on the weekend, and we have a big focus on intergenerational ministry and also ministry to our local community. We have a community centre that is involved in food distribution, and during this COVID-19 season, we've seen a real increase in delivering food hampers to the elderly, the vulnerable, and those self-isolating at home, and also a lot more food hampers to those in our local community who are doing life tough. Actually, in the month of April, we had 600 new clients into our community centre, and we serve up to 150 to 180 hampers a day. So, we have a real a love for our local community, and it's a real beautiful church to be a part of. I have the privilege of serving with my wife. My wife, Michelle, is our executive pastor, and it's great being on team together as well. So, yeah, it's a little bit about me. I have three beautiful kids, a 10-year-old, 12-year-old, and 14-year-old, and just, making the most of it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So you've obviously been the senior leader now for some years, and at Christmas, it was kind of, we're going to take a little bit of a break down the beach after Christmas. And then this thing out of China kind of whispers coming out of China kind of happened. And all of a sudden life changed. So tell us a little bit about that life and the ministry change at Clovey.
Yeah, so as you're saying, Steve, with COVID-19, it felt very much for a little while that it was something that was out there, not something that was right here. But very quickly, in the space of a month or 6 weeks, something that we just sort of heard about that was happening in China, then was very much real for us. So I remember getting my team together. It was March 16. It was a Monday morning, and we just had staff prayers. And then I invited my key leadership team and decision makers into the room. And I said, guys, this thing's moving fast. It's just not out there. It's also right here. And we need to make some decisions. And that day we spent about 2.5 hours putting a strategic response plan in place. And then I spent about the next 3 hours on the phone to church council and just making sure that we're all on the same page before we pulled the trigger on what we needed to do.
Yep. So very rapid response in terms of having to move very quickly.
Yeah, it was very fast, and we made some key decisions on that day. So that day we decided that we weren't going to have gatherings of more than 50 people on site, even though at that stage the government had still said we're up to 500. But we really believed we needed to make a proactive decision to lead our community, but also as good citizens, good neighbours, to create a safe environment and do whatever we could to stop the spread and flatten the curve. So we made that decision and we rolled that news out. The only thing, Steve, is that we haven't pivoted to online church or anything like that. So we record our services and we are online in terms of our sermons, but we haven't really moved into online church. That for us was a dream. It was something that we were maybe considering towards the end of 2020. But what kind of happened next for us was kind of pretty fast and pretty rapid. Do you want me to talk about that?
Absolutely. Talk to us about that.
Right. So basically on that Monday, we made the decision that coming weekend, we were going to stream our services. So our 9, 11 and 5 and our youth ministry and our children's ministry, we're going to investigate what it looked like for them to go online as well. We put a roadmap in place for all of our ministries to create a safe environment. But I have to say the worship team and the creative arts and tech team just did an amazing job, because within the space of 4 days, they had put together not only a plan, but then begin to execute a plan of how we were going to move online. And then that coming Sunday, we were online. It was our first Clovey online experience. Wow. And it was just amazing to see the team come together, to see both staff and key volunteers come in on the conversation, that collaboration, and out of the disruption and out of the, I guess, the difficulty of that initial conversation. For some, maybe the shock that we had to move that way so quickly. It was really beautiful to see the church leadership come together. So for the sum total of $300, which was our upgrade onto our CCLI streaming, that was our pivot cost. So we cobbled it together. We were sitting on some technology that I didn't know that we were sitting on. And then also we're able to pull some things together to make it happen. And since then we've added to that, but that was our pivot. Our pivot was a $300 pivot, and we pulled it together with a lot of goodwill and prayer. And it was a wonderful thing. So I think we've been at that for about 8 weeks now, Steve.
And what's that experience been like in terms of that 8 weeks?
Yeah, well, it's a lot of moving parts, right? You don't realise until you get into it how many moving parts that is involved in that. So I'm really blessed to have you as a friend as well, Steve. So we went to you and a couple of others that we knew have had experience in church online, and how we can best simplify yet create an experience and a service that we can put our hand on our heart and say, yeah, we're happy with that in terms of a production quality. Now, we're not a production company, yet we really wanted to make sure that we please God in terms of the excellence in what we were able to produce. So, yeah, it's been a lot of learning. It's been a lot of chatting with other pastors and leaders to see what their experience has been like. We made a decision early to pre-record, and I know some churches went straight into the live stream, but for us, that was just a few too many moving parts. So we made a decision to pre-record, and then in time move towards a live stream. But we really needed to set up some systems, some workflow and some processes, get a few different departments on the same page and in the same room so they could work together and cross-collaborate. So towards the best outcome. And that's been it's been really awesome to see the kids team work with the worship team, have the youth team in there as well. And the way that we've settled on it is we've settled for around a 60-minute service, which is about 15 minutes shorter than what we would normally go for. We've asked the communicators to drop from around 30 minutes to 20. And we've really wanted to create an experience that's authentic, that's Holy Spirit led, where we enable ministry moments and we let people sit and soak in the presence of God. And that's been really significant for us, as well as sustainability. You see all this hit in March, and then there's this little thing called Easter. That's normally a pretty big deal, right? You know, so we were just getting into some flow, and then Easter comes, which means there's Good Friday, and then there's Sunday. So there was a lot involved in that. But once we got through Easter, we talked about sustainable rhythms as well. Because one of the things I'll also say is we have Clovey Kids that goes on the end of our service, and it's awesome. Like to see families engaging in that has been really great. So,
yeah, that's great. So obviously, one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on was the story you're telling right now. Everyone that is watching this right now has probably been through a similar sort of experience, whether they're a production person, whether they're a lead pastor like you, whatever level or in serving in the church on paid or a volunteer. Everyone's gone through that same experience and had to pivot very quickly into a different process, very much in terms of just putting a Sunday service together, for example. Tell us just some of the stories in terms of what sort of feedback have you had? What have you discovered about all of a sudden hitting online? And, you know, have you been surprised by any of the stories?
Yeah, it's just been wonderful, Steve, I have to say. Like out of the disruption and how the Lord is leading people back to himself. So we've had a number of people. I should say that we've been using the Church Online platform, and so grateful to Life Church and Pastor Craig Rochelle. Like they talk about irrational generosity, and we're experiencing that from them right now. The platform is awesome. It's purpose built. And we also have been pre-recording so that on the weekend, on Sundays, we can really drive engagement hard on the back end of that through the chat, through the live prayer, and people having the opportunity to come to Christ. So some of the stories that have been coming through have just been amazing. Like, for example, there's one girl who hasn't been in church for a number of years, and she found us online. She found us through our social media advertising, and we direct people to our website and onto the platform. We've been driving people that way. That's a strategic decision we've made. And then she came into church online. She has put her faith in Christ, and now is beginning to read the Bible with another friend. And that's just one story that we've heard. We've also seen people who haven't been able to attend church in a number of years through health concerns also re-engage in church. And I was on a call today with a gentleman whose wife is in that situation, and she's now re-engaging in church. They're sitting on the couch and they're in church together. They haven't been in church together for like 6 years. And that's just another way in which we can engage people in discipleship. And that's been incredible. And it's clearly Clovey Online has touched the hearts of our congregation, because we had a donation of $10,000 last week from a family in our church that wanted to give towards the purchase of some new equipment, which is just amazing. It's just so good. Like in this season of uncertainty around the economy, people are still wanting to give into seeing something move forward. So yeah, we've also seen about a 30% increase in people engaging in church. And I don't mean the 3-second views thing. Like, you know, we've had people, you know, on average for about 45, 50 minutes. That's what the analytics say. And you know, we've had probably about a 30% bump in people engaging in church. A number of live prayers. We've had about over 40, 45 people raise their hand for Christ that we've been able to engage with, which is just incredible. And we're so grateful you know, that we have been used by the Lord in this way.
That's great. That's great. And before we came on air, you told me about a story of a family from overseas.
Yeah, that's right. So I was saying to Steve before we got online that it's been really interesting to see where different people are, I guess, logging in from. And we had a family that's part of our church, and their family are in Hawaii. And last year we had a lady from Hawaii. She was part of our church for about 6 months when she came and visited her daughter, and she went back to Hawaii this year, at the start of this year. And she loved Clovey, and she was part of our community, and we loved her as well. And she was a bit sad to go back, and yet with us going online, she's joined us again, and she'll drop into the chat each week, and she'll say hello from Hawaii, and it's just wonderful to have her part of church. And I know she's super keen, to continue to be engaged in the life of the church through the online experience. We've had people drop in from Michigan in the US and Ireland. We had a family from Malaysia this last week. We had our first online welcome lunch on Zoom a couple of weeks ago, and we had a number of families involved in that. It was a really deep and enriching experience to hear how they found their way into Clovey. And we've got another one coming up on the 31st of May, and we've already got 2 families that live in a different state to us that want to be, coming on to the welcome lunch. And I just think this opens up, Clovey Online opens up a whole conversation around Church Without Borders, like the geographical, barriers decreased, and the opportunity for discipleship and for mission is really significant. So we still have so much to learn, and we're on a journey of that, but we're posturing ourselves with the end in mind, which is this is going to continue, not be something that stops when we go back to meeting physically.
Yeah, that's great. So just paint a picture a little bit. You said something really interesting there in terms of a welcome lunch on Zoom. Paint a picture of what does that look like? Like, is this just you like opening up Zoom, or how have you worked this out?
Yeah, so we've centralized all of our comms through our website, like pretty hard. And then with Church Online, we've been using the moments and dropping them in, and that all drives people back to our website. So that's been really significant, that centralized communication portal. And we've got a next steps button, and that next steps button we use for a range of things. So we're now pushing ahead. We're running Shape online. We're going to do Alpha online. It's all moving ahead. Church is moving ahead. We're not going to wait until we see each other physically again. We're just going to keep moving ahead. You can hit a button, hit the next steps button, takes you into a form that you can fill in. It registers your interest for the welcome lunch, and then you get sent the Zoom link and the password, and then you come on at that time. And we have a bit of fun with it. We say, bring your lunch, and then what we do is we go around the room. So we had 22 on the call a couple of weeks ago, and we go around as you do on a Zoom call, and we just ask people how they find their way to Clovey, and what's that experience been like? How have they experienced us so far? And it was actually really deep and quite enriching for me to receive some of the feedback through the welcome lunch, because normally if we were together physically, we would have a bit of banter, it would be quite light, and then I would share a little bit about the vision and the mission of the church. Whereas this way, you're just getting instant feedback from people who have just found you or come into the life of the church, and it's really great. So I heard a number of stories from people around the warmth and the care that they'd experienced so far, either online or in person. And that really is quite special for me to hear, because I've been in the lead chair for 3 years now, and we've been working really hard towards some of these cultural ends, and to see and hear some feedback from people coming in on that was really significant. So we go around the grounds and hear from everyone, and then I'd share a little bit of vision and mission around the life of the church, and then offer some next steps around discovering Clovercrest, which is the next step in for us, or joining a life group. Yeah,
that's great. So basically you're basically outreaching and then virtually just basically discipling these people all the way through, whether it's into a life group or whatever, Alpha, or whatever that next step is for them. So you've had this taste of online. For everyone watching, Mike and I used to serve together at Crossway, and Mike was formative in my time there, and We talked about Church Online before it became Church Online, and now you've got a taste of it as well for Clovey.
Come on.
What's next for you?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, Steve. And I've been talking to my team about that already. And I've been, using some simple language. We've got to start with the end in mind. So with the systems, the processes, the things that we're putting into place, we actually need to do that, beginning with the end in mind. And that's really important. So from that perspective, we've been speaking about that. And I would really like us to pivot from a pre-record into a live stream on a Sunday morning, and our 9 a.m. will become the service that we live stream, and then we can rebroadcast that at 11 and at 5. So we need to look at how do we resource that, how do we make that happen, how do we provide opportunities for people to volunteer into that space, how do we provide point leadership into that space, how do we create sustainable rhythms, because we know that from a media perspective we'll need to ramp up, so we need to resource into that. And we're beginning those conversations because they have budget implications and they have personnel implications, and there's a lot of things that we just need to discuss because we're also in the midst of a global pandemic from that perspective as well. So we'll need to have those conversations and plan that out well and look at all that we need to. But it is my full hope and desire that Clovey Online becomes a campus of our church. It's really interesting, Steve, because we are going through a strategic planning phase at Clovey at the moment, and we're looking at what Clovey will look like in 2030. We've called it our God-sized dream. And one of the key pillars to that God-sized dream has been one church, many gatherings. And I've started to share that out a little bit. And I've had people come back to me in the last few months and, they've said, "Hey, Mike, did you ever think we're going to be one church, many gatherings by going into people's homes?" And I'm a bit like, yeah, haha, no one thought this was going to happen. But God's up to something in the disruption. And it's, I think, incumbent on us to innovate and to take it seriously. We're not talking about going back. We're moving forward. What is it going to look like in the new normal, and how will Clovey Online be part of not only our now, but our future? And this is something that we are taking really seriously and planning towards. And that's, that's something that I've got the whole team sort of working away at. And in some ways, I have to say, if, you don't know what you don't know, right? So if we kind of took the traditional path of change management and we looked at what it would mean to plant, Clovey Online as a campus, and we moved towards that, this has just been an enormous pivot and a heap of work. And I don't know how we would have done that and also had physical gatherings. So in some ways, the COVID-19 experience has just given us some time to experiment, some time to work some things out, and we need to learn all that we can learn. So as we move forward and we pivot to a live stream and look at what does that mean for us, we can do that well, and we can do that in a way that brings our online church community with us.
That's great, mate. I love this phrase, and it's a really good leadership principle. I think you said in there is we're not going back to normal, but it's a new normal. And I don't think that's going to change. If you're a church leader out here and you think this is just a temporary thing, the new normal is online. And just want to encourage you, Mike. Well done for thinking like that. Really, really smart. Really, really a good leadership and a good stewardship of the resources of the church. So well done on that. Now we're coming up against the clock, and just want. I know that you love to share leadership resources, and just tell us a little bit about the leadership resource that we talked just before we came on air about.
Oh, Steve, we talk about so many. Which one exactly did you want to talk about?
Was it the COVID-19 glue one?
Okay. You want to talk about the glue? Yeah. So what we've done is I wrote a book a about 2 or 3 years ago on relational youth ministry just before I pivoted into the lead pastor role, called The Glue. And it's gone really well. You can pick up copies at mikebstevens.com. And if you're in the US, that will take you to Amazon or Barnes & Noble. You can pick it up there. If you're in Australia, you can go to Koorong, or if you want a bulk order, it's best to bulk order. It's best for you in terms of your price to get that from the website. But what we've done in isolation is with Ben Dayton, who's the youth young adult pastor at Gateway Baptist up in Brisbane, we put together the Glue workbook. And it's really great. So we've got an ISO deal around leadership development. So head to mikebstevens.com. I'm sure, Foggy, you can put up an image around that so that everyone at the conference can check that out. And it's just an opportunity for you to upskill, develop your leaders during this time of isolation. And what we've offered is 10 books for $100. You get the active PDF workbook, and then you'll get an hour with either myself or Ben on Zoom, where we can just go Q&A back and forth with your leadership team. So the book's gone really well. It's sold over 2,400 copies, which is pretty good for a little niche market in Australia. So I'd be pleased, Foggy, if you gave it a spin, and we see if any of our friends in America or around the world would like to get on that.
Yeah, well, that's great. Well, what we'll do, we'll leave a link on the page where they can go find it. But here's the thing. Let's bless the socks off Mike here. Here's what we'll do. We'll do a giveaway. I'm going to buy 10 books off you, Mike, and we're going to do whatever the deal you just said. And if you are watching this and you think this will be helpful for your church, what I want you to do is to go into our Facebook group, and I want you to put a post up there. I'll put a post up there, and I want you to comment on that post that you want to get this resource. But you need to watch this session, and you need to type in the name of the book, okay? Because I'm going to put the post in, Mike, and some people are going to try and get it for free just because they're in the Facebook group. So we've got an insiders group.
Right. Probably some of my friends that are in the group. So
yeah, so we're going to give those books away to bless the church. So Mike, thanks so much for coming on today. It's been great, despite a little bit of a patchy line. And for those who are watching, thanks for sticking around. It's just the joy of the internet some days, and ISO life some days. It's just how we roll. But thanks, Mike. I really appreciate your time today.
No, you're a good man, Steve. Go well.